Hi, and welcome to Quarantine Cocktails with Chad and Nicole.
Today we are talking about the Bloody Mary. This is one of the most varied drinks around, but the core ingredients are just tomato juice, vodka, lemon juice, and Worcestershire sauce, which is also fun to say, and various spices and other seasonings.
Yes, now note that the drink doesn't appear to be named directly after Queen Mary the First, the eldest daughter of Henry VIII, and the first female monarch of England. She ruled from 1553 to 1558 and oversaw an attempt to reverse the Protestant Reformation that was initiated by her father. And during this period, she was responsible for the burning at the stake of over 280 different Protestant dissidents. And this earned her the nickname of Bloody Mary. And that's what entered the term Bloody Mary into popular consciousness.
The drink's origin is often credited to Fernand Petiot, a French bartender working at the New York bar in Paris in 1921. He's claimed to have made the cocktail on the spur of the moment for some customers from America, and initially it was simply vodka and tomato juice. Petiot claimed that one of those patrons hailed from Chicago and wanted to name it after a waitress from the Bucket of Blood bar in Chicago.
And hence Bloody Mary. An alternate story comes from comedian George Jessel, who claims to have mixed vodka and tomato juice in 1927 at a Palm Beach restaurant for a socialite by the name of Mary Brown Warburton. Although this claim has not been fully substantiated, she's rumored to have spilled the drink on a white dress, and therefore it was called Bloody Mary. At least that was his telling. So not really clear if there's any accuracy to that story. Sounds a little pat to me. But Petiot did mention in an interview in 1964 that he may not actually have invented the combination of vodka and tomato juice, but that he took it over and added the seasonings, and that's what really made it the drink that it is today.
But what is clear is that Petiot became the head bartender at the King Cole Bar in the St. Regis Hotel of New York when Prohibition ended. And right at the end of 1933 and into 1934, he introduced more or less the modern form of the Bloody Mary, named back then as the Red Snapper. But since the original name it was deemed a bit coarse for the St. Regis upscale clientele at that time.
Right. Now, his recipe for the Red Snapper / Bloody Mary was a seasoning mix prepared in the shaker with 4 large dashes of salt, 2 dashes of black pepper, 2 dashes of cayenne pepper, and a layer of Worcestershire sauce, plus a dash of lemon juice, which was then shaken with 2 ounces of vodka and 2 ounces of tomato juice and served over ice. From there, the drink became popular all over New York, but the original name of Bloody Mary proved to be more popular than their attempt to make it more upscale with the Red Snapper. Red Snapper can still be found today, but it's migrated onto basically a gin-based version of the Bloody Mary.
So we'll mention one other origin story of the Bloody Mary that circulates, which is that Petiot created the Bloody Mary in 1920 or 1921 for none other than Vladimir Smirnov of Smirnov Vodka, and that Bloody Mary is a mangled pronunciation of Vladimir. There doesn't seem to be that much support for this story except the fact that Smirnov himself was in Paris in the 1920s, along with a large number of Russian emigres fleeing from the Russian Revolution.
That's right.
Now, we've talked about vodka, we haven't talked about vodka much in this cocktail series that we've done, partly because most classic cocktails from the Prohibition era and earlier usually don't contain vodka. But before the end of Prohibition, vodka was considered to be a pretty exotic spirit in the United States.
That's right. So vodka originated in Russia, and it's a clear distilled spirit made from fermented cereal, potato, or sometimes fruit. Now, the first recorded introduction of spirits of any kind to Russia can be traced back to 1386,
Wow.
when the ambassador from Genoa brought aquavitae, which was distilled from grapes, to Dmitry Ivanovich Donskoy. Now, Dmitry was the ruler of the Principality of Moscow at a time when the Mongols were still ruling over large portions of Russia, and he was involved in sort of trying to break away from the Mongols. And he is the first one who oversaw the fortifications of the Kremlin, and is venerated as a saint in the Russian Orthodox Church. Now, then in 1430, a monk by the name of Isidore, who lived at the monastery that was within the Kremlin itself, is said to have used his knowledge of distillation to produce bread wine, as it was initially known, and it was produced exclusively in Moscow, in the Moscow region, for centuries, and that was the origin of vodka.
So the first use of vodka in its modern meaning comes from a decree by Empress Elizabeth in 1751, which regulated the ownership of vodka distilleries themselves. The government promoted the drinking of the spirit, which led to popularity in the region, and the state monopoly of vodka distilleries ran until 1863.
Right, and that is when Vladimir Smirnov's father, by the name of Pyotr Smirnov, founded the family distillery in 1864, pioneered the use of charcoal filtering in the 1870s.
Wow.
And that was really the distinctive mark of the quality of Smirnoff vodka at the time. So at its height, the distillery had over 2/3 of the market in Moscow for vodka, and was producing 4 million cases a year.
Wow.
However, the Smirnoff family fell on hard times after Pyotr died in 1898, and then the Tsar actually renationalized the vodka industry in 1904, so forcing the family to sell the factory and the rest of their assets over to the state. And then finally, when the Russian Revolution came, it forced Vladimir, I believe is the only one who survived, to flee Russia in 1917.
So he then established distilleries in Constantinople in 1920, Poland in 1924, and Paris in 1925. However, he didn't nearly match the success of the family's Russian distillery. Down on his luck in 1933, he sold the rights to the use of the Smirnoff recipe and brand in the United States to another Russian emigre, Rudolf Kunet, whose family had supplied grain to the Smirnoffs in Russia.
Yes.
So they were somewhat affiliated.
That's right. So Kunet began production of Smirnoff in Connecticut just as Prohibition ended, but found it hard to compete with the popularity of gin and other spirits at the time, and so his sales were fairly limited. Now, in 1939, he then in turn sold Smirnoff to a company called Hubline, which was an importer of food and spirits, for the sum of $14,000, $250,000 in today's dollar. Not an insubstantial sum, but certainly not what Smirnoff would be valued at today.
Right.
And so it was Hubline who really expanded the popularity of vodka in the United States. And we'll probably talk about that further in a later episode. But we'll just mention that from these humble beginnings, vodka has become the most popular spirit in the U.S., accounting for over 30% of all spirit sales by volume in the U.S. today.
Wow.
Yeah.
So shifting over to another ingredient, tomato juice. So tomato juice is used as a beverage on its own, traces to 1917 in French Lick, Ohio, where chef Louis Perrin of the French Lick restaurant ran out of orange juice and needed something to serve his morning hotel guests. So he is said to have used fresh tomatoes, sugar, and a secret sauce.
Yes, and given his name, maybe that secret sauce was Worcestershire sauce, because Leon Perrins was the first producer and most famous purveyor of Worcestershire sauce. So Leon Perrins in England commercialized their concoction back in 1837. Although the name can apply to any of a variety of similar sauces, it's not patented or owned, trademarked by Leon Perrins. Now, their original recipe combines vinegars, molasses, spices, and fermented anchovies. And that's kind of like what gives it this extra tang, although you can find some vegan versions of Worcestershire sauce out there if you want to avoid having that fish component.
So today we are making a version of the drink using carrot juice instead of tomato juice.
Yes, because Nicole isn't a huge fan of tomato juice.
No, I don't love tomato juice. So we thought, why not? Let's experiment. Trader Joe's makes a really good carrot turmeric juice blend that we're using, and it also contains some lemon and some spices already mixed into it. So it's a nice one for having as kind of a Bloody Mary-ish drink.
Right, so there's the juice that we're using today, this carrot turmeric blend. And we've already pre-mixed it with a spice seasoning blend. Now, it might be a little bit cheating in a craft cocktail to use a seasoning blend, but we really like this particular blend from Dimitri's, which is a local Seattle producer. So Dimitri Palace is the owner of this business, and he was a bartender working at the New Orleans restaurant in Pioneer Square here in Seattle. And he was frustrated by the lack of consistency in Bloody Marys as he did his work or tried Bloody Marys at other restaurants and hotels. And so he wanted to make a blend that would be consistent and deliver a fantastic Bloody Mary experience every single time. And so we're using one of his versions called Chilies and Peppers, which is an extra spicy version of his.
Very potent.
Yes, and so we mixed just 1.5 ounces of this into this 32-ounce container of the carrot turmeric juice blend. And we thought it was nice both that we had a Seattle connection, and also this name is Dmitri, which ties to Dmitri Ivanovich Donskoy, the ruler of the Kremlin, which has that tie-in to the origins of vodka.
Bringing it full circle.
That's right. I like to do
Good
that.
job.
So obviously, we've also got vodka as one of the key ingredients. And the vodka that we're using, we're going to use a Polish vodka instead. We're going to use Belvedere instead of Smirnoff, simply because that's the one that I like better than Smirnoff.
Sure.
And we've got
Go
that.
with what you like.
We've got that in our freezer, so we'll pull that out. So one of the nice things about vodka is you can keep it in the freezer. You want it very cold. We'll pull out our ice and our chilled glasses. Oh, and one thing I will note on the Dimitri's seasoning is it already contains the Worcestershire sauce, and it does have anchovy in it. So this is not a vegan mix. If you're vegan, you might want to explore other Bloody Mary mixes. All right.
All right, so you want to talk through, here is the classic Bloody Mary.
Right, so if you're following along at home, here is the classic Bloody Mary recipe, and hopefully you can see that. So, combining vodka, tomato, lemon, Worcestershire sauce, hot pepper sauce, and then seasonings to taste. And of course, garnish to your heart's content, which is another fun thing that people do with their Bloody Marys, is to garnish away with a wide variety of things, from a celery stalk, other vegetables, through to a charcuterie, cheese. I've even seen one place here in Seattle that puts a cheeseburger as the
On a stick.
Yeah, as the garnish. So here's our recipe for today for our rabbit of Caerbannog, named after the deadly rabbit from Monty Python's Holy Grail, and that's in honor of our use of the carrot juice blend as well as the spicing. So here we'll be using the blend, the Belvedere, and of course some fresh squeezed lemon. Whenever we use citrus, we're going to use fresh squeezed all the time.
Yep.
It just really will enhance the experience significantly. There's not too much lemon in this one. Now, one of the other things is usually when we use citrus in our drinks, we shake it. But if you look at some recommendations, like Difford's Guide strongly recommends not shaking your Bloody Mary, but rather using a kind of tumbling roll of the shaker. And the reason for that is tomato juice has kind of an interesting consistency. It's sort of like a suspension. And you don't really want to dilute it very much, otherwise you'll get kind of a very unpleasing kind of discontinuous texture to your Bloody Mary. And so he strongly, and I'll demonstrate that technique in a sec. He strongly recommends doing this rolling of the Bloody Mary. All right, so we pre-mix our spicy blend with the Dimitri's and the carrot juice. We'll shake that up a little bit. Since I'm making 2 drinks, I'm going to pour 4 ounces of my carrot juice blend in.
And feel free to experiment with whatever you like.
Right. I mean, one of the big things about the Bloody Mary is that the recipe really does vary quite a bit. And there is no particular one true way to make a Bloody Mary, although some people certainly swear by their versions, of course.
But that's the great thing about it too, is you can customize it.
Yep, absolutely, to your taste.
And Britt says, add bacon to the garnish. A lot
There
of
you
people
go.
do that because it's got that nice salty component.
All right,
Mixed
so
with the savory of the tomato is really nice.
I'll add in the vodka now. So I put in 2 ounces of vodka, and then Nicole has squeezed some fresh lemon.
It's not a lot. So
Not a whole
how
lot.
much do you need?
Just a half ounce. Fill that guy up.
Okay.
Perfect.
About right.
Yeah, about right. So we've got our half ounce of lemon. There's some lemon already in the juice as well, which is why I didn't go too far with the lemon. All right.
And you
so
don't
now,
need saline, right?
so we're not going to add, sometimes, usually when we're shaking a cocktail that's got citrus along with spirits, we'll add a little bit of saline because that helps to cut some of the bitterness of the citrus. But because this already has a significant amount of salt in it, and we're also going to put a somewhat salty rim on the drink, we really don't need to add that much citrus in this case. Any saline in this case when we're using the citrus. All right, so now this carrot juice blend doesn't quite have that same suspension texture as tomato juice, but I'm still going to demonstrate the technique today. The basic idea is that we're going to chill it and we're going to mix it thoroughly without the sort of significant amount of dilution that might come from shaking. So this is the rolling technique that Difford's recommends. So we just do this about 20 revolutions of this kind of gentle tumbling roll rather than a full shake. And that is going to produce our cold drink. Now, one thing I wanted to demonstrate as well was doing the rim. So today with the rim, we're actually we take a bunch of seasoned salt. We're using Lowry's seasoned salt, not quite as salty, a little bit of sweetness and a little more spicy in it as just plain salt would be. And I've also included some celery seeds. And I put it in this round tin that my glass fits very nicely in, right? And you can moisten the edge of your glass with your lemon, or these ones are coming out of the freezer, so they're also already kind of pre-moist, but you can, make sure that they're going to hold up, get that nice rim based on.
And then you'll still get that celery note from the celery
Correct,
seed,
right?
which is nice.
So now with this drink, I've proportioned it to fit nicely in this glass with a single large cube rather than a bunch of cubes and maybe a larger pour that you might have. But I'm going to take it and I'm not going to double strain either like I might normally with a citrus one because there's already a bunch, I would strain out a bunch of the actual like vegetable content, which I don't really want to do. And there, I've sized it nicely so that the tops of my large cubes, you can just barely see, the tops of my large cubes are there. And that's going to give me an opportunity to take some fresh grated, I picked up some horseradish, to put some fresh grated
You've never seen a
horseradish.
horseradish before?
Yeah,
That's what they
they're
look
large.
like.
They're very large. So I'm going to take some of that fresh grated horseradish, just grated it with my cheese grater a little bit, kind of medium fineness, not super fine. I'm just going to sprinkle that on top. Now, horseradish is a commonly used ingredient within the spicing mixes. And some people really love a lot of horseradish. I actually like a lot of horseradish. In this
I do
case,
too.
I just happen to be putting it on top as a nice little note on the top of my
And it
large cube. And
makes
it gives
look
me,
nice too.
it does, and it also gives me some of the smell and flavor of the horseradish as I'm taking a sip of it. And then we've got our garnish skewer, and here we're just using some pickled vegetables, including pickled carrot, of course, for our rabbit, and to go with our carrot juice. And so we'll set those nicely in there.
Inside, not on the rim.
Yeah, I think, you know,
Inside's
it's a bit, you don't want it to balance awkwardly. And in fact, they might
Nice.
even need to take it out
Nice
to
little.
drink, but get a nice little accent there, and a little salad to eat on the side as you enjoy your beverage. Cheers.
Cheers. Ooh.
Yeah, that's got some nice kick. Yep,
Very
and
nice.
I like the texture. It's very good. So I hope you are enjoying a delicious Bloody Mary or some riff or a cocktail of your own there at home. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.